What if I told you you could see some of the most jaw-dropping and alien-looking natural landscapes on Earth without flying across multiple continents or crossing many time zones? In fact, you could do this all in one trip. What do I mean? There are 5 completely different national parks known as the Mighty Five that are located hours apart, all within the same American state of Utah. Sounds ideal, right? But this is where the trip falls apart for most people. They show up too late, get turned away at the gates, spend hours in shuttle lines, and waste half their trip in traffic, extreme heat, or unexpected cold instead of actually seeing anything. I've done this trip before, and here's exactly what I wish I knew before going so you can actually experience these parks the way they're meant to be seen. If you're watching this from outside of the United States, Utah might not even be on your radar. Most people think of places like New York, Los Angeles, or Miami, but Utah is something completely different. The landscape here is surreal, with massive red rock formations, deep canyons, and natural arches that you don't really see anywhere else on the planet. And the best part of it is how close everything is, relatively speaking. You don't need flights between destinations, you can drive it all, and that's what makes this trip so special. Before we go into the parks themselves, let's talk about timing, because this is one of the biggest trip killers. The best times to visit are shoulder seasons, spring and fall, especially late March through May, and then September through October. The temperatures are manageable, the lighting is better, and the crowds are still there, but much more reasonable. Summer is the most popular time, but also the most punishing. Temperatures can exceed triple digits, the sun is intense, and the crowds peak, with parking lots filling early and trails getting congested. Winter is the opposite. Fewer crowds and incredible scenery with snow on red rock, but you'll deal with cold temperatures, frigid ones, possible road closures, and icy trails. For most people, late April, May, or October is the sweet spot. When it comes to getting here, it's pretty straightforward. Most people either fly into Salt Lake City within the state, or better yet, fly into Las Vegas. It's not that far actually, and then drive, and that leads to the most important thing about this trip. You need a car. There's no real public transportation between these parks, so driving is the only way to do it properly. The good news is the roads are well maintained, and the drives themselves are part of the experience. A standard car is completely fine for most people. In terms of time, you want at least 7 to 10 days to do this comfortably. And one quick tip, download your maps offline before you go into the parks because cell service is very limited or completely non-existent. So here's something most people get wrong before they even arrive. The order. If you just look at a map and start booking based on what looks cool, you'll end up backtracking, adding hours of driving, and wasting time you could have spent inside the parks. The correct way to do this is west to east. You start in Zion, then Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef, followed by Canyonlands, and finish at Arches National Park. This follows a clean path across the state of Utah and avoids unnecessary driving. Most people flying to Las Vegas or Salt Lake City pick up a car and then drive into this route. Just stick to that order. It will save you hours. Let's begin at Zion National Park. And there's a reason for that. It's one of the most visited national parks in the United States. And when you arrive and see those canyon walls rise around you, you immediately understand why. This place is defined by its canyon, carved by the Virgin River, and the scale is something you really have to see in person to understand. Two of the most well-known experiences here are the Narrows and Angel's Landing. The Narrows takes you directly through the river in a narrow slot canyon, and it's one of the most unique hikes you can do anywhere. Angel's Landing is a much more strenuous climb with chains and steep drop-offs, and is now requiring a permit through a lottery system, so you need to plan that in advance. Now here's what most people get wrong. The main canyon is closed to cars during peak season, so you have to take a shuttle, and those lines can get extremely long. The fix is simple. Get here early. If you're on one of those first shuttles of the day, your experience will be completely different. Zion is the park that hits you the hardest right away. It's crowded and requires planning, and it absolutely lives up to the hype. After Zion, you head to Bryce Canyon, and this is where everything changes. Bryce Canyon looks nothing like Zion, and that's the point. Where Zion is about scale and massive canyon walls, Bryce Canyon is about detail. You're looking down into amphitheaters filled with thousands of hoodoos, tall, thin rock formations in red, orange, and white that honestly don't look like they belong on this planet. Most people experience Bryce Canyon from the rim at viewpoints like Sunrise and Sunset Point, which are great, especially early in the morning. But if you want the real experience, you need to hike down into the canyon trails like Navajo Loop and Queen's Garden. They take you directly into the hoodoos, and it feels completely different from just looking at them from above. Two things to know. First, the elevation. Bryce Canyon sits over 8,000 feet, so if you're coming from sea level, you'll feel it. Go slower and drink more water than you think you need. Second, Bryce Canyon is incredibly dark at night. If the sky is clear, the stargazing here is some of the best you'll see anywhere. There are many differences between Zion, but the biggest takeaway is there are less amenities such as restaurants and hotel options at Bryce Canyon than there are at Zion. Bryce Canyon is the park that surprises people the most. It's smaller than expected, but what you see here is completely unique. From Bryce Canyon, you'll head to Capitol Reef, and this is the part most people consider skipping when they feel short on time. Do not do that. Yes, the distance is much further from Bryce Canyon than Bryce Canyon is from Zion, but Capitol Reef is totally different from the others. It's less about one big landmark and more about the overall landscape. This is where you slow down a bit, and the scenic drive here is one of the easiest wins of the entire trip. You can drive deep into the park with almost no effort, and the scenery keeps changing the entire way. For a lot of people, this ends up being one of their favorite parts without expecting it. If you want to hike, Cassidy Arch is a solid option. It's moderately challenging and gives you one of the best views in the park. And then there's something here you won't find anywhere else. Orchards. Right inside the park, depending on the season, you can actually walk through and pick fresh fruit like apples, peaches, or cherries. It sounds random, but it's one of the most memorable parts of the entire trip. Capitol Reef is the park people underestimate, and it's usually the one they regret rushing. And then there's Canyonlands. This is the park most people know the least about going in, but it's where the scale of this region really starts to hit you. Canyonlands is massive. It's divided into multiple districts, but for most people, Island in the Sky is where you'll go. It sits high above the canyon system and gives you some of the widest views anywhere in the United States. You're looking out over layers of canyon, river, and desert that stretch as far as the eye can see. Mesa Arch is the most famous spot here, especially at sunrise, when the light hits the underside of the arch and makes it glow. If you want that experience, you need to get there early. Right nearby is Dead Horse Point State Park, just outside the park boundary. The view here, with the Colorado River bending through the canyon below, is one of the best in the entire region. It's a short stop and absolutely worth it. Canyonlands is also one of the best places on this trip for stargazing. If you get a clear night sky here, take advantage of it. Canyonlands is where the scale of this landscape really sinks in. It's not about one landmark. It's about how far everything stretches. And last, but certainly not least, from Canyonlands, you head to Arches, and this is where the trip reaches its most iconic point. Arches National Park has over 2,000 natural stone arches, the highest concentration anywhere in the world. This is the landscape most people picture when they think of Utah. Red rock, open desert, and massive formations that look like as if it were painted by an artist. But you're standing right in front of them, and they are surreal. Delicate Arch is it's the symbol of Utah. It's one of the most recognizable natural landmarks in the world. The hike to get there is about 5 kilometers round trip across exposed rock with no shade. So you need to plan for heat. But when you get there and see it standing on its own against the landscape, it delivers. There are a few others you shouldn't skip. Landscape Arch, one of the longest in North America, and Double Arch, which is one of the easiest to reach and one of the most visually stunning. Now, the most important thing to know, Arches requires timed entry reservations during peak season. You can't just show up and drive in. These reservations sell out months in advance, so this is something you need to lock in early when planning your trip. Arches is the payoff. It's the park that looks exactly like the photos, and it's one most people remember when they leave. So now you have made it. You've seen all the parks, but here's the things that people don't think about until they're already on the trip that you should be planning beforehand. First off, fuel. Gas stations are not frequent once you're deep inside these areas. Do not let your tank get low, thinking you'll find something nearby. You're far away from the interstates. Fill up whenever you have the chance. Second, food. Options inside or near the parks are limited and often closed early. If you finish a hike late, you may not have many choices. Plan your meals or bring food with you instead. As I said, Zion probably has the most amenities, if at all, at Springdale, the town that's located within the canyon. But after that, it gets much more limited. Third, physical fatigue. This trip adds up. Early mornings, long drives, hiking in heat, changing elevation. By day 3 or 4, most people are more than tired than they expect. Give yourself some lighter moments instead of packing every hour. Fourth, expectations. Not every moment is going to look like a perfect photo. Some viewpoints are quick stops. Some hikes take effort. Some drives are long. The experience is the combination of all of it, not just one highlight. And finally, the pace. The biggest mistake people make is trying to do too much. The Mighty 5 is not a checklist. If you rush it, you miss what makes it special. Let's talk about cost, because this trip can easily get more expensive than people expect if you don't plan for it. Park entry is simple. Individual parks are about $35 per vehicle, but the America the Beautiful Pass is $80 and covers all of them for a full year. If you're doing more than 2 parks, just get the pass. Rental car is your next major cost. Expect roughly $50 to $100 per day depending on the season and vehicle type. Gas adds up because of the distances. Budget around $150 to $300 total depending on your route and how much driving you do. And I would recommend get an all-wheel drive because you're out in the countryside and there's a lot of dirt roads out there. And if you're just sticking to the pavement, you're missing a whole bunch of stuff. Accommodation varies the most. Budget hotels in gateway towns will run you about $120 to $250 per night. Mid-range hotels are usually $250 to $400. If you're staying inside or right next to the parks, prices can go up, especially in peak season. Food is another hidden cost. Meals near the parks are often $15 to $30 per person, and groceries are marked up. If you want to save money, buy food in larger towns before entering the park areas. Overall, most people end up spending somewhere between $1,000 to $3,000 for a full Mighty 5 trip, depending on how long they stay and how they travel. So that is the Mighty 5 national parks all in one state, and one of the best road trips you can do anywhere in the world. If I had to rank them, honestly, here's where they'd land. Capitol Reef would be my 5th choice, followed by Canyonlands at 4, then Arches at 3, Zion as my 2nd favorite, and my favorite of all, Bryce Canyon, number 1. Not just because it's my name, but because I feel Bryce Canyon is the most aesthetically, amazingly complete one. And best of all, it's much more manageable to walk and explore than some of the other ones, in my opinion. And also, I think the sunset and sunrise just fits so perfectly in the amphitheater, and the amphitheater itself is probably the most unique thing you could ever see on the North American continent. There you have it. If you're planning this trip, drop your questions in the comments. I read them and I'll help where I can. If this gives you ideas, or if you didn't even know about this, I definitely would want to hear from you. And like and subscribe if this video was helpful for you. And thank you. It means a lot to me. If you want more trips broken down like this, subscribe and check out the next video on the screen. And let's explore what this world has to offer. Coffee Travel signing out.